Hello there everyone, my name is Nathan Birch. In this video I'm going to go through some questions that were asked this morning a little over an hour ago. Funny thing to note, out of my two online sections, it looks like we got 8 or so-ish questions in here and 0 in here. Kind of made me chuckle a little bit. It's all good. So I'm going to go ahead and go through these and I'll try to do this more. Maybe I'll do this in a week or two also. But let's go ahead. I'll try not to make this super lengthy or verbose. So I'm constantly getting port in use errors. What's a good way to troubleshoot that? Let me first show you what is causing that. So if I come over here, I have a node project up and I just say npm start. That looks great. Web servers listing at port 3000. And if I come over to a different terminal window and I just say npm start, crash, we have an app crash right here, and we have that port is already in use. 3000, it's already being used. It's because I have it running in this terminal. So sometimes I have multiple VS Code windows open, sometimes I have multiple terminals open, and that's what will cause that error. Next up, I had some confusion last week about making collections in Mongo and how to connect it to my code. Any direction would be awesome. So let's look. I have MongoDB Compass pulled up right here. And I could pull up the same thing with if I just sign into mongodb.com, I could access this as well. But in Compass, all I have to do is just hit this little plus button and it'll create a new database. Now, a database, these are all different databases that I have in my account right now. And so I think I just made like a test contacts one yesterday for some videos that I made. But then when I open this up, it shows each collection. So for strategist, I have a language collection and a users collection. This one has themes and users, okay? And then I have the database level right here. These are all my databases. So if I look at this database and I have a collection in here called contacts, and I have these collections in here, or these documents in here. If I want to make a new collection, let's see here. If I just hit the plus button next to a database, then it'll have me make a new collection in that database. And so I could just say, well, maybe I have like an accounts collection, and I just say create collection, and it's there in my test contacts database. And then I can just add data here. The reason why I like to use MongoDB Compass is because I can actually import with a JSON file. And so if I did have a JSON file, I could actually just import it directly into MongoDB Compass, which is nice. Let's say though, we'll say add data, insert document, and right here, I can just say, I'm gonna add a field. Wow, this is a horrible UI. I cannot even see this. Oh, there we go. So I'll just say account number, and we can add 5 as the account number, and let's say that's the only thing I have, and there's my first object in here. I'll do the same thing again, and I'll say account number is 6. Oops, hit the wrong button there. 6, and then insert. Okay, so you can see, I should have been consistent with those. That's okay. Anyways, so I can insert individual ones, and in Compass I can also insert an entire file as well to just create individual documents. As far as connecting to them in your code, so there are 2 places where you need to look. First, in your controller, my controller doesn't have one. Let me actually open up GitHub. Actually, I'll open up the week3 solution, and we'll just look at it here. So notice first that this DB folder, which we'll talk about more in a little bit as well, has this connect file, and I have this MongoDB URI string. Now I'm going to open up MongoDB, and we can look at that. We can look at what that URI string actually looks like. But in that, I can specify a database that I'm going to use within my MongoDB cluster, or I can leave it off if I want to. So let me go to sign in. I'll go ahead and sign in here. Outside of that, outside of my environment file, the way I connect to like a specific collection is just in the controllers usually. It's like this one. I have my database specified for my environment file or my environment variable, and then a collection inside of my cluster or my account is just contacts, and I can grab any contacts that I want to. If I was accessing the new account that or the new collection that I just made, I would say accounts is what I called it. And I could put any collection that I have here. Database as well. I had like one that was like portfolio builder, I think is what I saw. I can put a specific database right here. I usually don't do this just because I usually don't have a Node app that needs to access multiple databases. And so just to make it easier on me, every time I'm accessing a database, I'll just leave this blank. And then in my environment file, if I say connect, this is actually a database name. Test is a database name. So I have my username, my password, and then I have my specific cluster, and then a database name. So for our class, if I go back to VS Code, I would have an env file, and I'd have MongoDB URI equals, and I'd have that. My database is called contacts, and then I would just change out this for my actual password, which is not awesome password, but that's okay. But that's what this would look like, and then it would work great when I have a DB connect file similar to, yeah, we'll say leave. We don't want to save that. Similar to this right here, I'd find that MongoDB URI variable in my env file, and then it would be able to connect to it. So hopefully that helps with that question. All right, next up. I would like to understand what body parser is doing better. I looked it up, but the explanations were full of jargon. I would love a simplified, plain English explanation. Body parser allows, Body parser enables your Node app to accept and parse JSON data from a user. So if, for example, I'm going to go to, just the less than 3 personal solution, and I'm going to look at that controller again. And so this week we're doing a post, put, and a delete. And so we have the get all, get single from last week right here, where I say rec.body. That's going to be a JSON body. And in that JSON, we have first name, last name, email, favorite color, and birthday. If I want to actually be able to access these values, first name, last name, email, from that JSON body, I need JSON parser, or the JSON, the body parser. If I don't have that body parser, then this JSON by default is just going to come in as a string. So let me show you an example. If I go to my extensions in here, and I just put REST client, which is what a lot of us are using in this class. Sorry, my computer keeps on freezing up. All right, let me scroll down here. I'm just going to go find a post example right here. Okay, it looks like beautiful JSON right here. But when it's actually submitted and my Node application receives it, it's just going to be a really long string. And all of this will just be in a string. And so if I want to actually be able to say rec.body, which is that string, .first name, I need a body parser to be able to convert that string into usable JSON. Now I could do that right here on line 22 before I declare this new object, but I'd have to do that every single time. So the fact that we have a body parser that I can include one time in my app, in my entire app, and I just toss it right there, it will be used for every single route. And anytime there's a JSON body for a put or a post or anything else, it'll just automatically parse it. And it's really nice, and I don't have to worry about it anymore. So hopefully that helps. It's just there so that your application can use the user input, the JSON body, as a JavaScript object. So let's see here. I have been trying to understand status messages and how to use them, when, what number to use. Information explicitly explaining this would be helpful. This is in reference to when pulling info from the database with get or post. It looks like use a status 200 or something similar with a number in the parentheses. So let's go back to this solution real quick. And I'll go back to the controller again. So right here, every single one of these, res.status 200, 200, those were last week, 201, 500, 204, 500, 204, 500, and that's it for this week. An easy way to see this, I can just say HTTP status codes, and I can see a nice list, thank you Mozilla, of the near 600 status codes. I guess that's 500. Anyways, there's a lot of status codes. It's kind of ridiculous. I probably use 5 on a regular basis, and you will see those in this class. So I got this question in my campus section today. 200 is very common for just anything. I can use it for all of these, and it's great. So really, if you wanted to just use 200 for any time something works in your application, that is not frowned upon, and it is totally fine. 200, though, I'll usually use for all of my posts. This is the request succeeded, and a new resource was created as a result. So I'll use 201 every time I'm using a post. 204, if I just say HTTP status 204, this says indicates that the request succeeded, but that the client doesn't need to navigate away from its current page. For this purpose, I'll usually use 204 for when I do a put. I'll do 204, but a lot of developers will just use a 200 when they use a put, and that's just fine. A delete, you can also use a 204 if you're okay with not navigating, or you can just use a 200 for a delete. That's fine. And if you're ever not sure, you can just say best HTTP status code for delete, and you can see 200 or 204, and I can say what's the best one for a put, and it says 200. Looks great. I could say for a get, and well, there's not a clear answer there, but 200 is what I would do for gets as well. So all that looks great. The only thing that I want to steer you away from, if I go back to here and I look at these 400 errors, a lot of the time people will just have a 400 error instead of having anything else in here. Okay, I might not want my users to know that they found a legitimate route in my API. You know, I might not want to just tell them, oh, you're unauthorized to view this route. I would like them to just not even know that it's there. And so I'll just say it's a 400 or even a 404. If I go to GitHub and I say, okay, I have Nathan Birch as a user, here is one of my repositories, okay? And if I go like this, that's not a repository, it'll give me a 404. That doesn't exist. But if I go here, here's just like my GitHub profile. I have 88 repositories, most of them are private. This one right here, 341 course new, this is a valid link. But if I open this up in an incognito tab, I get a 404. Now, if we look at this, it says a 404 is not found. The server cannot find the requested resource, meaning it's usually non-existent. But look at this, servers may also send this response instead of a 403 to hide the existence of a resource from an unauthorized client. This response code is probably the most well-known due to its frequent occurrence on the web. And we can see GitHub using that right now. It is there, and no one will know that it's there. So with API development, very frequently, we like nice, vague error codes, okay? As far as like puts and posts, just 200, 201, 204, I wouldn't do anything else other than those. Error handling, though, you can't go wrong just saying, oh, we got a 500 internal server error. We got a 400 client error, or a 400 bad request. You're just fine to use those. I could get extremely specific and be like, oh, this one used to exist and now it's gone. I would never use that. It's there, but I will never use it. So hopefully that helps with status codes. I guess one last thing that I will share with status codes, sometimes, like this one with the delete contact, I don't have to send any data with this. They just deleted a contact. All they need to know is whether it worked or not. Same with the put. They have this entire object on the front end. I don't need to send any data back to them. They have the user ID. They have all the user data that they're updating. So I'm just going to send back a 204 to say, yep, we modified it. It worked. Okay. So yeah, hopefully that helps with that one. Okay, next up, in MongoDB, they walk through creating a connection file, but in your solution, we are using the connect.js in the DB folder. Why is the other not needed? So I think it was Scott. He had a great answer on here. I can connect to this file any way I want to, and I'll tell my students in class on campus frequently that if I wanted to, I could have an entire Node.js API all in one file. just in the server.js file. Instead, mine's like 23 lines of code long. And the reason why is because it's nice to be able to separate this logic from the rest of the logic in the application. So if I wanted all of my code to connect to MongoDB right here, I could put it there, and that would be just fine. My personal preference, and you don't have to share this personal preference, is having a DB folder where I can connect and use it. I have a function to initialize my connection, which I'll call once in my server.js file where I'm actually starting my web service. And then I have a getDB one, which I'll use on all of my controllers, just so I don't have to keep on reinitializing the database. I'll initialize it once, and then I'll go ahead and leverage that variable that was populated when I initialized it here. So it's really nice that JavaScript works in this modular way really, really well. It just, in my mind, it cleans things up and it makes your application really scalable. But no, I could call this anything I wanted to, and really all of this code I could put directly into my server file if I wanted to and not have it anywhere else. But this is just a nice way, a nice clean way to initialize the DB once and never worry about it again. Okay, all I'd have to do is just say get DB, which you'll see in all of my controller files. So next up, I really appreciate all the videos you made. I was wondering if you have an organization or a good way to find the videos in a relevant order on YouTube. Some of the videos reference others, and it's tough to find the video being referenced. I'm also interested in the difference between our code and your code. Okay, so let's answer this question first. No, I don't have a good way for you to access all these. I guess if you wanted to, there's my browser. I'll open this up. I'll go to a video. I'll just say watch on YouTube. If you really wanted to find other similar videos, I would just say click here. And you can just, all these blue ones will be for our class. And so you can, my screen's freezing again. You can just click on videos and you could search for it. But yeah, all these blue ones will be for this class specifically. And then I'm sure you could also search, if I just like searched for Node, these would be all the ones that come up for Node. Or if I wanted to search for like MongoDB, all of my videos with MongoDB would come up on here. And all the ones with this blue are like for this iteration of this class. These ones are a couple years old. But anyways, so no, I don't have a nice, easy way to find them. I think what you may be looking for though is just this FAQ page. So this FAQ page can be super, super helpful. I can filter this by specific topics. So these are all my MongoDB questions that I frequently get. I saw some questions today about how to create a collection. Okay, here's a video on it if you ever forget and you don't want to watch this long video. There was a question that came up in Microsoft Teams about, I think it was this team assignment solution. In like the first 10 seconds, it mentioned the other solution video. And so what I did, because I saw that question a couple times and it wasn't super clear where it was, I added it in here into this description so that you could pull it up. Okay, so if there's ever a video that you're not able to find, just put the question on Teams and we'll help you find it. And if I get that question a few times, then I'll go ahead and just put that into the description of the video where it's being linked from to help you find it. All right, I'm interested in the difference between our code and your code. Sometimes I'll write something and it works just fine, but then yours is more complex. And okay, so no, you should absolutely stick with yours. If you like the way yours looks and it makes more sense to you, then do it. A lot of the time mine is more complex. Like I'm looking at, I had that thought a second ago when I looked at this week 3 personal solution, and there was a bunch of error handling. Let's see, maybe not a bunch. I saw it somewhere. I mean, so there's this. Okay, maybe not. Anyways, it is more complex. And so you could look at this and be like, oh, mine's way shorter, it means it's way better. Maybe, that's totally fine if it is. But you do always want to have like checks in place for other things. You know, if I'm building this object from scratch where I could just use rec.body, why would I do that? Well, there might be an issue. There might be more things coming from the request that I want to validate. I want to make sure I have a good contact. If anything does go wrong, I want to have a 500 response being sent back. But technically, I could just have basically this for this update contact function. I guess this too. And it could work. Okay. So I would just encourage you to compare yours with mine and just see if there are any pros and cons. It's very likely that you can find pros and cons in my code. and I'm totally fine saying that. And you'll see the same thing if you look on Stack Overflow. There are so many different ways to do things in Node. It's kind of crazy. Yeah, lots of different ways to do things. A lot of people will structure their projects very, very differently than you'll see the way I structure my projects. This is coming from like 7 years-ish of experience working with Node, and a lot of people have more experience or less experience, and they've found a great way to do it that works for them, and that's awesome. So if you watch like a YouTube tutorial and it's completely different, that's just fine. Some of the MongoDB questions that I get in this class have to do with Mongoose. Students asking me if they can use Mongoose, and I say absolutely. You can totally use it, that's just fine, but you don't have to. So there are a lot of different ways to do things, and you shouldn't feel like you're not doing a good job if it doesn't look exactly like mine. Because if I wrote that code again right now, it would not look exactly like what I wrote a year ago. Like it's always going to change. So it's all good. Well, that looks like it. It looks like that's it for all of our questions. So I will end this video. I guess 21 minutes could be better, could be worse. But I hope that this helps, and I wish you the best of luck this week. Thanks, guys.